to our scripture, starting with Exodus chapter 31. Exodus chapter 31 from verses 12 to 18. Exodus chapter 31 from verses 12 to 18. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am, or Ahayah Yahweh, that doth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whosoever doth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of the Most High. That was Exodus chapter 31, verses 12 to 18. Now we turn to the book of the law, Deuteronomy. These be the words, Deuteronomy chapter 30, from verses 1 to 10. Deuteronomy chapter 30, from verses 1 through 10. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing for thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations I have driven thee. His voice, all will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee. The nations where the Yahweh thy Most High have scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahweh thy Most High gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Yahweh thy Most High will bring thee into the land that thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Yahweh thy Most High will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy Most High with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And Yahweh thy Most High will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh, and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. And Yahweh thy Most High will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land, for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Most High, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto Yahweh thy Most High with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Praise the Most High Yah. That was Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. Last but not least, we go to the book of Revelation. The revelation of the Messiah. The revelation of the Messiah, Yahushua. Revelation chapter 11. And we're going to be looking at the seventh trumpet of Revelation chapter 11. Revelation chapter 11, verses 15 to 19. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of Yahweh and of his Messiah. And he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before Yahweh on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped Yahweh, saying, We give thee thanks, O Yahweh al Shaddai, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of Yahweh was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings, and voices, and thunderings, and an earthquake, and great hail. Praise the Most High Yah. Praise Yah for his truth. Now, brothers and sisters, I want to kind of finish chapter 10, or actually finish chapter 10 of Hebrews as we're studying Hebrews, but I want to revisit one verse last night that is a very important verse, and I want to go deeper into it because actually that one verse begins a little narrative at the end of Hebrews chapter 10 that will help us in these last days. Brothers and sisters, we want to, the goal of the word of the Most High is to sanctify his people, to set apart his people, to make his people set apart, to make them one with himself. We understand, as we read in Romans chapter 8, that those of us who are called by the Most High, all things work together for good to them that love the Most High, who are called according to his purpose, for the purpose of being made. Well, how does it say? Let me read it exactly because I don't want to mess it up, but I don't even want to paraphrase it if it's right here. So let's look at Romans chapter 8. It says it in a way that I don't want to mess it up. So let me see it here. Romans chapter 8, beginning at verse 28, and I'm going to go verse 28 and down to verse 30. From verse 28 down to verse 30 of Romans chapter 8, from verse 28 to verse 30. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love Yah, to them who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. The reason the Messiah is called the firstborn among many brethren is because, brothers and sisters, the Messiah, of course, as we very well know, the Messiah is a being of perfect righteousness. Okay? A being of perfect righteousness. And anybody that's going to be also in the kingdom of the Father and the kingdom of Messiah is going to also be a being of perfect righteousness. And the first being of perfect righteousness that walked the earth as a man, that was born of a woman, is Messiah. Everybody understand? Testing 1, 2, 3. That's why he's called the firstborn among many brethren, because he is the first being born of a woman that walked the earth in perfect righteousness in human flesh. Okay, he walked earth perfect righteousness in human flesh. And because of his ministry as a high priest, as we've been talking about from Hebrews, he will allow, or he will cause all of those that are saved to be made into perfect righteousness. Okay, all of those saved, even those that have been dead before, when they are resurrected, they are made into perfect righteousness. You understand? And then those of us that are alive and remain are also going to be made into perfect righteousness, witnesses for the Most High, witnesses for the Most High of his righteousness and of his truth. Yes, praise the Most High Yah. So we've been studying about that, and that's our goal, to give honor and glory to the Father. Remember, we always say that, right? I want to make sure you can hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3. You can hear me, right? The object and goal of any Israelite, any true Israelite of the scattered nation. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. And you hear me in Pal Talk? I want to make sure before we continue. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you type a 1 if you can make good? The object for any true Israelite is to bring honor and glory to your Father, to represent your Father in a way that brings him honor and glory. Okay? Messiah is our example in that because as we study the Gospels of the New Testament, the so-called New Testament, we see him constantly saying how he doesn't speak any word on his own, how he doesn't do anything of himself, but that any word that he speaks, anything that he does, he has learned from his Father. And he also says he does it for the glory of his Father. In fact, when he was teaching us how to pray, he said, the first thing he said, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. See, that's how he started off. So he starts off even praying by giving glory to the Father. So our goal as as the followers of Messiah is to give glory to our Father. And we can only give glory to the Father as Messiah did, as we are obedient to the Father, as we bear witness of the Father's perfect righteousness. And that's what we're seeking to do. Now, for a brief moment, I want to stop in Hebrews, where we're going to be reading today, and then go back to some other things that I would like to go through before we eventually end up in Hebrews. But let's look at this one verse that we looked at yesterday, Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10, actually it's two verses, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26 and 27. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26 and 27. We're going to come back to Hebrews after we study these two, but this is going to set the baseline or the stage or the foundation for what we're going to be looking at in the rest of this chapter 10 of the book of Hebrews. So let's take a look at this. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. So, there today, I want to discuss for a little while the common traits of those that are going to be condemned. And because we as Israelites, the enemy often tries to bring guilt upon us to cause us to sin. But if we understand the truth, he will not be able to do that. Okay, so let's look at common traits of people or individuals that will be condemned by the Most High. One is being talked about right here. When it says, if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth. Now, this is a very important statement. Because, why is it important? Because he's saying a person that has received the knowledge of the truth and turns back is lost. That's what he's saying. He said there's no more sacrifice for sins. Therefore, he's saying that the Messiah's sacrifice will not help them. So this is a very important statement, right? Because if there's a situation, this is almost just as important as somebody thinking, well, have I committed the unpardonable sin? Because this is saying here that if whoever these people are that have received the knowledge of the truth and then go back and sin, that's unpardonable, right? Because they have no sacrifice for their sins. Does that make sense? Everybody follow me? So this becomes a very important scripture right here. Right here, becomes very important. So what does it mean that a person received the knowledge of a truth? Now, this is much deeper. First of all, let me make you understand one thing. This is much deeper than just theoretically understanding something. You understand? It's much deeper than saying, I understand that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's not what this is talking about. All right, I want to make sure you understand. So in other words, if you have a theoretical knowledge of understanding of the truth, for example, you know who the true Hebrews are, that the Negro is the true Hebrew. The people of color, the brown people, are the true Hebrews. You understand that? That's an acknowledgement. You understand that righteousness comes from the Father. That is something you understand from study, you come to understand that. That's an important truth. But this is deeper than that. This is not only having a theoretical understanding of the thing, but having an experience in the thing. Are you following me so far? Testing one, two. It's having an experience in the thing. So, for example, if you like fast cars, a lot of men like fast cars, some women too. But if you like fast cars, you can read it. Like I can read about a 911 Porsche. Fast car. I can read how fast it goes. I can read about how it handles. Somebody can describe what it feels like to drive one or to be inside one. But one day, a friend of mine, I used to work with many, many years ago, he bought one, a brand new one. And we went for a ride in it. And being in it is a whole lot different than reading about it. All right, that's what I can say. So when you're actually experiencing it, it's a whole lot different than reading about it. Okay, so that's what this thing is talking about. When you have received the knowledge, the word knowledge in the Greek is a word that means to be fully acquainted with. Fully acquainted with. Right? So that's the difference. For example, you say, I know this person. Well, really, you might know of the person, or you might have met the person casually. But if you grew up with them, lived with them, or loved them, then you really are more thoroughly acquainted with that person. You have an experience with that situation. You understand what I'm saying? So when this verse is talking about having received the knowledge of the truth, that means you have had an experience with the power of Yah's righteousness. And when you have had an experience with the power of Yah's righteousness, you understand what, right? Because you would have done it. Testing 1, 2, 3. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what repentance is. You understand what forgiveness is. You understand what power over sin is, because you would have in some measure experienced it for yourself. How could you be a witness about anything without having first experienced it, right? If you're selling something and you're telling people this thing is good, how could you say it's good unless you have experienced it? If you say, well, man, this chicken that Aunt so and so made is really, really good. Well, how do you know? Well, because I read the recipe? No, because she made it and I ate some, and it's really, really good. Okay? That's how you know. So when this verse is talking about having received the knowledge of the truth, in other words, they have experienced it. Asatan is an example. He's the great example here with this one, because he was anointed by the Father. Wait, did you hear what I said? He was anointed with the Spirit by the Father. He understood the power of Father's righteousness. He was in the covering 24 elders are now, where they bow down and they cry holy. He was right there. And he understood what it felt like to be in the presence of the Father and to be anointed with the Father's Spirit and to be sealed with it. And then he went against it. See? So now there's no more sacrifice for sin. You understand? There's no more sacrifice for him, because he experienced it. He experienced it. He knew what it was about. He knew what it was like. And then he chose to go against it. All right? So number one, I want you to understand that there's a group of people who are condemned or are going to be condemned, who have actually experienced truth, have actually tasted what it means to get victory over sin, have actually understood what it means to be blessed with forgiveness from the Father. And they turn away. They're not like they choose to turn away, just like Asatan chose to turn away. They choose to turn away. Okay? They have experienced it. All right? So then there's two types of condemned people we're talking about here. There are people that have actually come to the truth and experienced it. Let's talk about Judas. Judas was there when Messiah raised Lazarus from the dead. He was there. He was there. Judas was there and knew that this man was in that grave for 4 days, to the point where his sisters told the Messiah, you don't want to remove that stone, master, because he's starting to stink now. I mean, he's been dead 4 days. They didn't embalm brothers in Israel like they did in Egypt and like we do here. So that body started rotting. Any meat would start rotting after 4 days out in the open, right? So she said, you don't want to remove that stone, master, because he stink. And the Messiah said, did not tell you you're going to experience the power of the Most High? And they removed the stone, and he called Lazarus, and Lazarus came forth from the dead. And Judas was right there. He saw it for himself. He saw it for himself. Judas was right there when many people walked up to Messiah and said, I can't see, I'm born blind, and Messiah made them see. When people that were lepers so bad that people would move away from them and Messiah would completely heal them. He was right there. And in fact, he was one of the 70 that was called to go and bear witness of the Messiah to the nation of Israel, to the cities of Israel, and was given power to do it. And they came back and they were saying, even the devils are subject unto us by thy name. So he experienced all of that. He was there. He saw things. He experienced things for himself. And what did he do? He chose 30 pieces of silver and to deal with the devil over being fearless. The problem was he tried to go behind the Messiah's back and he tried to make a deal with Messiah's enemies. That's what he did. That's what he did, right? That was the great sin. He went behind Messiah's back and tried to make a deal with enemies. Somebody said, well, what about Peter? Peter was scared. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Peter messed up now. He denied that he knew Messiah. Why? Because he was scared. He was scared. And he later, repented of that fear. And he felt bad about himself and wept bitterly because he was scared. Judas wasn't scared. Judas was calculating. Are you following me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Judas was scheming. That's what he was doing. He was scheming. And he was trying to, we have a word we use in the black community. And I think it's appropriate to use it with Judas. And I think you'll understand when I say it. Judas was trying to get over. You hear what Judas was trying to get over. That's what he was trying to do. Okay? So he had experienced the power of Messiah's ability to raise the dead. He had experienced the power of Messiah's ability to heal. He had experienced the very presence of the Father's Spirit on Messiah. He had experienced Messiah laying hands on him and causing him to do things. And he was scheming behind Messiah's back. He chose to do that. He chose to do that. That's why there's no more sacrifice for sins for him. You understand? Testing 1, 2, 3. You follow me so far? So now, if you actually, and now let me just explain this. It's not like, dropping a bar of soap in the shower. You have the bar of soap in your hand and it gets real slippery and you drop it on the tub and you have to go pick it up, right? That's not how easily you can lose the power of the Father with you. It's not that easy. So in other words, you gotta put forth some effort. You gotta really, like Judas had to really think about this and plan this out. It wasn't something that came upon him suddenly. It was something that was building in his heart the whole time. Especially when he saw his father get rebuked by the Messiah for trying to down Mary Magdalene. So it was building up in his heart. And then he decided and he calculated and he weighed the cost. He counted the cost. He said, okay, if I do this, this was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Let me figure this out. And he was doing this in his heart. And he never came and talked to the Messiah about it. He never came and talked to the Messiah and says, I didn't like how you handled my father. I didn't like how you talked about that woman. I didn't like this or I didn't like that. I want you to talk to me about this. I'm not. That would have been different. If he'd have faced Messiah with it, maybe he might not have did that. But he was scheming. So he wasn't going to bring it to Messiah. He was going to keep it to himself. So he can do his own plans. Now, if you are experiencing the Messiah's righteousness, if you're experiencing his power, you might be like Peter. You might mess up and then you're going to feel really bad that you messed up because you did not bring glory to the Father. And you're going to wait bitterly and you're going to come back to the Messiah and you're going to come back to Messiah. Isn't that what Peter did? Peter didn't go back to the scribes and Pharisees and say, I messed up. No, he went back to the Messiah. And he's in Messiah, and he had to receive Messiah's rebuke. Messiah rebuked him 3 times. He said, Peter, do you love me? Peter said, yeah, I love you. He said, Peter, do you love me? Peter said, I love you. He said, Peter, do you love me? And notice, he had to do it 3 times. Why? Because Peter denied him 3 times. So, and Peter started to get really sad at that 3rd time because he knew what it meant. And he said, you know all things. You know all things. You know I love you. You know my heart. You know me. And then he began to give Peter instruction, in fact, prophecy about what was going to happen to him in the future, how he was going to die for his faith in Messiah. That's repentance. See, you won't want to do that if the Father's righteousness is cast off from you. You won't even have a desire to do that. You understand? Testing 1, 2, 3. You wouldn't have a desire to do that. So if you are feeling bad about something you did, and that happens to me all the time, I'm sure it happens to you, you're going to come back to your knees. You're going to ask the Father for forgiveness. You're going to seek his face, and you're going to want to redeem yourself, and he's going to give you opportunity to redeem yourself. He's going to put you back in a situation where you failed and give you an opportunity to be victorious the next time. He does that. He does. He does. He does that all the time. He doesn't just, he forgives you now, but he doesn't just leave you like that. He's going to put you back in the situation, back to the point where you failed. And he's going to give you another opportunity to this time become victorious because you asked him. Okay? So if that's you, you don't have to worry about, well, I know the truth and I fell and I sinned. No, that doesn't mean you don't have, no, you got to reject the truth. You gotta start using tactics that Asatan would use. Right? You have to now not go to the Father, not go through the Messiah, not be repentant. That's what this means. We talked about two types though. Let's look at 1 Thessalonians, another well-known one. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. No, I'm sorry. Not 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I get them confused sometimes. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Yes, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now listen here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This is the second group of people. Now, the first group of people that are condemned are people who have once understood and had experience with the truth and are scheming just like Satan did and just like Judas did, for something for their own glory. In other words, they stopped worrying about or concerned themselves with the Father's glory. Now they worry about self. They're going for self. And it means somebody get over self. Generally, it's a combination of things that people want when they do reject the truth after having had a full experience with it. Generally, they're wanting money, they wanting power, they wanting glory for themselves, something to that effect. Money, power, glory for themselves. That's generally what it is. That's generally what it is. Judas did it for money. Satan did it for glory for himself because he wants to be God, right? So that's what it is. It's generally something that you are trying to do on your own for self. That's why we said that when we start, is the glory of the Father. The object for the Israelites is the glory of the Father. And as long as that's the glory that you're looking to bring for the Father, bear witness of his righteousness, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And that's what you got to hang on to. Remember now, the Bible says you become part of the house of the Messiah if you remain firm unto the end. Right? You remain firm on your desire to receive, reflect, and bear witness of the Father's righteousness. You remain firm in that desire. You're going to be fine. Everybody got me? Now, you have to have respect, of course, all the time. Have respect for your enemy. Have respect for your enemy in the sense that you don't take your enemy for granted. But at the same time, you also know Father's power is way far above anything the enemy could do. Way far above. Okay? It's not even worthy to be compared. So now, that's the first person. Let's look at the second group that's going to be condemned. Let's take a look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Let's see. I'm going to start at verse 1 and read down to verse 7 to start us off, just to start us off with this second group right here. Okay? Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of the Master, Yahushua the Messiah, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that day of Messiah is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he, as the Most High, sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things? And now ye know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Let me explain this part so that y'all will understand the second part. This is talking about the Roman Catholic Church and the development of Christianity. And when he says the mystery of iniquity doth already work, when this letter to the Thessalonians, when this letter to the Thessalonians was written, the Roman emperor was in power. There was no Roman Catholic Church. There was no pope. There was no priests. There was no Christianity when this letter was written. Okay? But Rome was in power as a military governmental force. All right? Everybody understand me so far? So there was a force of government, a force of military. It was in power at this time of this writing. But eventually the military power was going to go away and the spiritual power was going to take over. In other words, it would transform from an earthly power of military and government into a spiritual power of darkness and deception. All right? That's why he says, in verse 7, the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. In other words, the pagan part in terms of the governmental power, the temporal power of Rome was going to be removed and replaced with a spiritual power of the Pope of Rome. Everybody got me so far? You follow me so far? So that's the, and when he says that the man of sin, he's talking obviously about the Pope. Okay? Talking obviously about the Pope. Because he exalts himself because they call him Holy Father, don't they? Don't they call the Pope Holy Father? Right? And if he says you going to hell, that means you condemn to hell. And if he says you're going to purgatory, that's where you're going. That's what they believe. So he thinks he's the Most High. And he said where he sits in the Vatican is the temple of the Most High. Right? Temple, right? Because people make treks. They go from all over the world to see him there. And if you get a private audience with him, that's a big thing in Christian circles. It's a big thing. So that's what this is talking about. So it's a setup, and the apostle is warning the brethren of the setup of the Roman Catholic Church. Well, how did he know? Let me ask you all this question. How did he know that was coming? How did he know that was coming? How did the apostle Paul know that that was coming? How would he have found out? Did the word tell him? Is there something in the word that talked about the coming of a power from Rome that was going to be a spiritual power? Yes, the Spirit did tell him, but did he read about it anywhere in the word of the Most High that was going to show a power coming up out of Rome that was going to dominate the earth on a spiritual level and persecute the true people of Yah? Yes, the scriptures do say these things. Somebody might ask who never heard before that what I just said. What scriptures? The book of Daniel. Read the whole thing. Particularly chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 11, and chapter 12, and you will understand exactly what Paul was talking about. Because it is explained in those things. In fact, we have done studies on it. If you look at our Revelation series does go into that. Okay? From our website that Isha so well put together. Our Revelation series does go into that. Okay? So, this is talking about the Pope of Rome and the establishment of Christianity. Okay, so now let's continue reading 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 from verse 8, down to verse 12. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom Yahweh shall destroy with the spirit of his mouth, and shall, whom Yahweh shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Asatan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause Yah shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. This is the second group of people we're talking about. There's a group of people that sees that there's more power with the people that are not in the truth than the people that are in the truth. In other words, you look at the established Christian churches. They're very large. They have lots of money, right? Large edifices, lots of money, lots of people on their side, even governments on their side. And who are the chosen, the true chosen of Israel? They have no established church. They are not 501c3 corporations. They do not get a lot of money. They do not have a lot of buildings and real estate and bank accounts. And they are scattered throughout the earth. So if a person is looking at the two sides and they're saying, which side do I want to choose? I want the side that's got the power, the side that's got the armor, the guns, the military, the police, the side that's got organization and money and real estate and buildings and hospitals. I want that side. And notice what I didn't say. I didn't say anything about, I want the side that has the truth. I didn't say anything about that. That doesn't come to the equation. What came into the equation is, let me pick what's best for me right now. Okay? Self, that's right. So that the second group has in common with the first group that is not about the glory of the Father. They may not have ever been acquainted with the truth, ever, but they don't even want to know, because they don't even want to deal with what that might mean in terms of their own persecution, in terms of losing whatever financial, material, temporal assets they may think they have. They don't want to have any problems, so they choose the side with the that they perceive has the most power. And that's another reason why the Most High allows his true people to be scattered, often by themselves, without a lot of support, because he wants us to learn to trust in him and in his word. It's very important that we learn to trust the word of the Most High and trust in the Most High, regardless if the entire planet's against us. We have to, and we would only be dealing with that in terms of our conviction. Again, it comes back to that, doesn't it? Our choice to follow truth is based on our conviction. How are you convicted? It doesn't matter how many other people are convicted that way. How are you convicted? See, because if you can understand in yourself that you have chosen what path you believe with all your heart is right because it is truth, you can sleep with peace. Right? If there's no other agenda but to please your Creator, and you are choosing a path that you believe will please the Creator because it is truth, and you're convicted that is truth, you're fine. The Creator, whatever you lack in terms of true knowledge, understanding, he will supply at that point, because he understands your heart is sincere in giving him glory. It has nothing to do with you. See, you make that decision based on the glory of the Father, not on self, not on counting the cost for yourself, but for the Father's glory. That's the second group, right? That's the second group, people. The first group have actually been in the truth. They actually have experienced what it's like to live in the truth. They've actually bore witness of the power of the truth. But they have an agenda that involves self in terms of their own gain in terms of money, power, influence, whatever, and they make a decision, a conscious decision to go against the truth because they feel like they can play both sides. They scheming. The second group might hear the truth, but they don't even want to experience it. They don't want to know about it because there's a problem. Because if they have to take a stand for that, they're seeing some problems down the road for themselves. Versus if they don't take a stand for it and they stay with the lie that they're still with, they seem like, well, the lie has more power. They got more money. They got more organization. They got more people. I think I'm be with them. I'm be all right. I'm good. And all your lost people are gonna be in one of these two camps. All your lost people. But it always comes down to self, doesn't it? It comes down to self, does it not? It always comes down to self. Is it for you or is it for the glory of your Father? If it's for the glory of your Father, you want your Father's spirit of righteousness on you because that's how you can bring him glory. You can bring him glory by wearing his clothes. Huh? You can bring him glory by wearing his clothes. And if you wear his clothes, you're going to end up doing what he does. You're going to put on his shoes, you're going to put on his clothes of righteousness, and you're going to end up walking like him, just like Messiah does. And where you fall short, you're going to feel bad, and he's going to be comforting you, and you're going to come to him with your shortcomings. You're going to go to the Father with your shortcomings. See, Judas never went to Messiah with his shortcomings, did he? You never read about him saying, Messiah, I have this problem. I have this problem of greed. I have this problem that I want stuff, that I like money. I have a problem. He never did that. He never did that. He schemed in his heart. And also, Asatan did the same thing. He says, for you have said in your heart, I will be like the Most High. I will sit upon the sides of the north. Remember? He said it in his heart. He was scheming. He was scheming. Schemers have a problem. Right? Got a problem. Okay. Let's now go. Now we understand a little bit more. Let's go to Hebrews. Because now you understand basically, people that are lost are two camps. Either they have experienced truth for themselves, experienced righteousness, and saw the power and bore witness of it and then rejected it for self-interest, or they don't see enough of the truth in terms of benefit to them personally, so therefore they will go with the other side no matter if it's truth or not, because they see personal benefits to going against the truth. Okay, I don't want a problem with my family. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want a problem with my friends. I don't want them talking about me. Blah, 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 blah. And so I see a problem going with the truth because I'm going to have some problems with my personal benefits. All right. Hebrews chapter 10. Let's begin again at verse 26. But this time, let's read from verse 26 down to verse 30. Actually, to verse 31. I'm sorry. From verse 26 to verse 31. Hebrews chapter 10, 26 to 31. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sorer punishment, suppose ye, shall he be thought worthy, who hath trodden under foot the Son of Yah, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. For we know him that hath said, vengeance belongeth unto me. I will repay, saith Yahweh. And again, Yahweh shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Most High. What does he mean by that? Brothers and sisters, if you have had an experience with the Most High, with the truth, and you have bore witness of the truth and felt the power of the truth in your own person, and for your own selfish motives, for your own self, you decide to go against your heavenly Father, you're falling into his hands of judgment. in his hands of indignation. He's indignant. In other words, he has given you his best. He has shown himself to you fully. You have received it and then you spit on it. You're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem. That person's going to have a problem. You understand? That person's going to have a problem. It's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the Most High. That person's going to have a problem. Remember what Messiah said about Judas, the selfish schemer. Been better for that man if he had not been born. Isn't that what he said? It had been better for him if he had not been born. Why? Because he was scheming against Father's righteousness after having experienced it, after having seen it. He, in his own heart, schemed against the Messiah. Was sneaky. After he saw Lazarus raised from the dead and saw lepers healed, deaf being able to hear, and blind be able to see, and crippled be able to walk. After he saw the power for his own in his own person, bore witness that devils were subject unto them through the Messiah's name, he decided to scheme against the Messiah. Try to play both sides. Try to play both sides. Brothers and sisters, one thing we understand, you can never play both sides. You're on one side or the other. You can never play both sides. There's always some fools, no matter how. That's an old saying, isn't it? That's been around for centuries, right? Millennium even. But yet, there's always some fool that thinks he can play both sides. You cannot play both sides. You're either all in with the Father or you're not. Messiah said it very plainly. He said, he that is not with me is against me. So either you're all in to give glory to the Father or you're not. Now, I want you to understand, while Asatan cannot control your thoughts, I want to make sure you hear what I'm saying here. Asatan cannot control your thoughts. He cannot. But what he is permitted to do is give you suggestions. Did you hear what I said? He is not permitted to control your thoughts, but he is permitted to suggest things to you. Again, let me give you an example of this. There is a certain thing that you know if you had this thing, whether it's a man or a woman or whatever it is, it's sin. Like you're married and some man or some woman is in your face or in your purview and is tempting you to break your vow. Now, this person that's tempting you has all the physical and even some emotional character traits that you like. And you are attracted to that person, and they are attracted to you. It is very obvious. A voice may come to you and say, man, that's better than the one I got right now. Man, wouldn't life be better with that person? Who is doing that? Who is making that suggestion? Now, you hear it in your mind, but who is really making the suggestion? You think it's you. It's not you. It's Asatan. He's permitted to do that. Just like he came to Messiah. Messiah had not eaten for 40 days. He had not eaten for 40 days. And he was hungry. The Bible says after it, he was in hunger. He was hungry, as you would imagine. Asatan came to him at that point and said, make these stones into bread. Take this kingdom I'm going to give you. Forget all this suffering, man. It's hard. Take this kingdom. I'm going to make it easy for you. I'm going to give you power. I'm going to fill your belly with fresh bread. But what did Messiah do with that suggestion? See, it's the same way he comes to us. The way he came to Messiah is the same way he comes to us. It's the same way. Messiah used the word and said, no, this is what the scriptures say. In other words, I'm going to obey what my Father is telling me. Yes, he can even sound like you. He's going to bring it right to your mind. He's going to suggest. He's allowed to do that. He's allowed to suggest things to you. You've been having trouble with certain thing, a drug, a cigarette, whatever. And all of a sudden you're in a stressful situation where you would normally reach for a cigarette. And here comes the voice. Man, I need a cigarette. That's after you have already come to the Father and said, I don't want to smoke anymore. I don't want to smoke anymore. I want to stop. And he gives you the power to stop. But Satan is permitted to come to you and say, in your voice, I need a cigarette. And it's up to you to say, Messiah, rebuke you. I've come to the Father and asked him for victory, and he's going to give it to me. It's up to you. You have to make that choice at that moment. So he's permitted to suggest things to you, so that you are taking that suggestion as if it's yours and running with it. Yes, he does. He definitely does. He definitely does. He definitely does. He's done it to me and my wife. He definitely does. But you'll know when he does, because it'll feel dark. It'll feel dark. You'll know that. It'll feel dark. Someone asked, for those that are watching, that are listening, does he touch you? Can he physically touch you? Yes, he can. He's permitted to do that. But you'll know it's him because it'll feel dark. It'll feel something like something you shouldn't do, something you shouldn't have, something that's not supposed to be. It will feel like that. And you'll know. And when he has to touch you, that means he's really scared of you, because instead of just making a suggestion, he comes to touch you. That means he's really scared. You have to understand, bullies are really scared people. You know, when you actually face a bully, they don't want to deal with you. When you actually start, people that are stick up kids, as we call them in New York, when people come robbing you, they don't want a fight. They want you to just give up the stuff and get done. If you put up a fight, thieves don't want to fight. They just want to get the stuff and go, or get you under their power, but they don't want you to fight back. And it's the same thing with Asatan. So you have the word, and you have the word of the Most High, and you have your faith. Testing 1, 2, 3. The Bible says, with the shield of faith, you can overcome all the fiery darts of the wicked. So when you believe and trust that your Father is delivering you because you asked him, no matter what has been suggested, no matter what he does to touch you, he's going to run. Okay? Because he not only does he not want to be dealt with, he doesn't even want to be exposed. But so like, remember when he went away from Messiah, because Messiah said, Yahweh rebuke you, Asatan. That's the first. He had not called him by name in all the temptations that Asatan gave him. He never called him by name. He said, "Oh, Asatan, Yah rebuke you." And when he got exposed, he left. You understand? So when you hear that voice and you know it's not from the Father and you know it's not good, you just rebuke Asatan. Asatan rebuke you. That means he's been exposed and he's gone. He's out. He has to do it so that you don't realize. You understand? That it's him. That you think is you. Remember it again. Let's go back to that prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Watch this. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. Right? So in other words, he said, whenever you get brought into temptation, the Father's not leading you into temptation. You know it's Asatan, and he has promised to deliver you from him. He's not going to stop Asatan from coming to you. You have to be strong in faith to say, I'm going to stand firm, because the day's got to come. You got to get to the point in your existence where he comes to you and there's nothing that he can do to you, because you're so strong in faith. That's what the Most High is trying to get you to. The object is for you to be so strong in faith that Asatan could come to you and you ain't got there's nothing. He says, right? Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. He will do that. The Most High will 100% of the time make a way out of anything Asatan brings to you. 100% of the time. If you want it. If you want it. Okay? If you want it. He'll always make a way out for you. 100% of the time. So the people that reject the Father's trust, that reject the power of his righteousness because they have experienced it and they don't want it. They choose their own selfish way. They're going to have a problem. Fearful, looking for a judgment. Been better for them if they had not been born. Let's continue. So then he talks about those of us, this section continues, and he talks about those that have stood firm in the face of all opposition, even if it means standing by themselves, believing that they're going to give glory to the Father and receive his righteousness, believing that a kingdom is coming that's worth more than anything on this earth. And let's look at that, verse 32 down to verse 36. Hebrews chapter 10 from 32 to 36. So he tells them to remember, but call to remembrance the former days, in which, after ye were illuminated, ye endured a great fight of afflictions, partly whilst ye were made a gazing stock both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly whilst ye became companions of them that were so used. For ye had compassion of me in my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that ye have in heaven a better and enduring substance. Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of Yah, ye might receive the promise. Right? So he says, remember, again, that word is very important in the scriptures for the Hebrew. Patience, right? Because he says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Yah and the faith of Yahushua, right? Messiah said, in patience possess ye your souls, right? So we have need of patience because we got to deal with a lot in order to hang on to the truth. And he reminded them of times past, the people that are reading this. And this is another reason I believe Paul wrote this, because he talks about his bonds. You know, he mentions that in other letters, that he was in jail. He said they had compassion of him in his bonds. They weren't ashamed that he was in jail. You know, a lot of times in times past, families were ashamed when one of their family members was in jail. They were ashamed when one of their family members was in jail for doing something bad. And that goes back to ancient times. People didn't want to be placed in custody because they did something wrong, right? That was a shame on their family. But these people were not ashamed of Paul being arrested, being put in jail for the truth. He wasn't ashamed of that. And they had no problem giving up all their material stuff to help him and to stand for the truth. And he reminded them of that. And he said to them, you're not doing this for nothing, because you're going to have a recompense. That means you're going to be repaid. You're going to receive the promise of the kingdom and of righteousness. Okay, then he finishes verses 37 to 39, Hebrews chapter 10, verses 37 to 39. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come, and will not tarry. But now the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul. Yeah, there's your faith right there. That's where your faith comes in. You start in faith, you finish in faith. You continue in faith, right? You continue believing, trusting in the righteousness of your Father. Continuing to bear witness to the glory of your Father. Continuing to believe that your Father is going to overthrow all the kingdoms of this world, like we read in Revelation chapter 15 this morning. We read Revelation chapter 11, not chapter 15, chapter 11, where he said, and the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Yahweh and of his Messiah, right? And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, in the time of the dead that they should be judged. So Yahweh is going to overthrow all the kingdoms of this world with a violent, powerful overthrow. Okay, he's going to do that. And we are holding fast and firm on that, understanding that we're going to be recompensed. We're going to be repaid. We're going to be blessed in the kingdom by hanging on to our faith in the Messiah and giving honor and glory to the Father, no matter what it costs us in terms of temporal things on this earth. There's no scheming with the Most High's chosen people. There's just trust and faith in the truth of his word. And it doesn't matter how many others are with it and how many others are not. That doesn't matter. What matters is our conviction. Our conviction is what matters. And standing firm on the word of our conviction. Praise the Most High. Let's have a word of prayer. Most High Yahweh, we give you praise and honor and glory for your word.